I think it's safe to say that it's been a pretty good international period for most of our players. A lot of these guys stepped up individually for their nations, and I'm hoping that these guys are going to bring back that confidence now back to the Premier League as we prepare to play against Burnley tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Now, I was lucky enough to be invited to an open training session in preparation for this game, and obviously when I got invited, I had to invite Matisse alongside me. We had a great time. If you guys want to see how my day at Cobham went, obviously, I released a video yesterday, so try and watch it after this one to understand what really went down. But I have to say, my friends, after an international period, if there's any three clubs I want to play against to reintroduce myself back into life in the Premier League, that's going to be Luton Town, that's going to be Sheffield United, and that's going to be Burnley. So I'm feeling optimistic against Burnley based on the fact that, and I respect them for this, Burnley try to win by playing football, even though sometimes it works out against them. But I guess in hindsight, if Burnley were to defend to get results, they probably couldn't do that and they'd be a lot worse. So for a club like Burnley, they're not going to be surprised if they get relegated, but they have some young, exciting talents that could remain at Burnley for the next few years. And I would not be surprised that if they got relegated this season, they'll bounce back in big fashion, and they've got a lot of young talents that can improve and will be better for life in the Premier League in the future. But they still have a few games to, of course, affect their destiny this season, and they're still a team that you have to respect because they have some exciting individual attacking talents that can cause those threats. But outside of that, they do play an open game, hence why they've lost 20 times this season. So I'm really hoping that these guys are going to focus up, get the result against Burnley, and get ready for next week's massive game against Man United. I want to get a win tomorrow to prepare myself in the best possible fashion for Manchester United, and I want to hopefully get a few goals. Now, I'm not going to be surprised if we concede. I mean, we've been conceding goals for fun, but as I've been saying throughout the whole season, I feel like for a team like us, we can't do everything perfectly. We're not good enough to be able to control a game, keep a clean sheet, stop counter-attacks, get those goals. We can't do all of that at once. I feel like we must focus on certain things to work upon and fine-tune other areas over time. So at least we are scoring goals, which is a net positive, and I'm hoping that we can see goals tomorrow against Burnley, my friends. So in today's preview, I'm going to be going through team news. I'll go through the press conference, and I'm going to focus on talking about the injury crisis at this football club. And obviously after that, my friends, I'll be discussing my predicted lineup versus Burnley too. So I hope you guys enjoy. Hit that like button if you guys feel like we are going to beat Burnley tomorrow. Share your thoughts and opinions, and without wasting any more time, now let's start with the team news. And I know that yesterday when it got announced that Trevor Chalobah, Sanchez and Chukwuemeka are the new injured players on the injury list, I know that a lot of fans were getting frustrated and getting annoyed. I think there's context behind this, of course, with Trevor Chalobah. I saw him yesterday and he was taking part in light training sessions, so I just feel like he's not fully match fit right now. Khan's picked up a contact injury whilst on duty with the England under-21s, and Robert Sanchez just hasn't been the same since he's got injured. Obviously, he got subbed off in that game where he underperformed, and even though Robert Sanchez might not be world class, I'm not going to disrespect the guy and forget about his good form before his injury, and it feels like he's still getting impacted by this injury that he sustained earlier this season. So outside of those new injuries to the list, it's still the same old story for everyone else, and I guess maybe we shouldn't expect Enzo Fernandez to play because he did come back to the club very, very late and may not pass the fitness checks, of course, in time to maybe start the game. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was used as a sub against Burnley because I feel like Enzo must get ready for Manchester United for next week. So my friends, that's the injury news out the way. Let's discuss the press conference key points, and I'm only going to focus on 2 key points from the press conference. And from the second point of this press conference, of course, we discussed the injury news, and it'll be like a bit of a 2-part involving like Romeo Lavia and then kind of my thoughts and opinions on this injury crisis. But earlier this week, as we know, it was confirmed that Lavia will be out for the entirety of this season, so hopefully he comes back ready for next season. But there were some accusations suggesting that maybe Pochettino's training demands and methodology might be putting his players under further duress, because why are we constantly getting injuries left, right and centre? Anyway, here's what Pochettino had to say, and as he says, we can't forget that when Lavia first came here, He came with problems from Southampton. He wasn't able to train with us for the first few months. He wasn't able to train during pre-season. And as he got a bit closer to getting better, of course, he got 30 minutes in the game he was used. But then he picked up an injury in that game. Now, to continue on, Poch mentions that he hasn't had many opportunities to actually even train at Cobham based on the injuries that he has been picking up. He's been there for over 9 months, but he hasn't had as much time out on Cobham, out on the field, out on the pitch. And even before his recent setback, which has kept him out for the whole season now, Poch said that he was only on the field for a few weeks prior. So it does seem like he had some serious issues from before we even signed him, and he needs a bit more time and patience to, try and acclimatize and get back to full speed. Because we have to remember, with the pre-season period, that is the best conditioning period for players' bodies to get ready for the rigorous demands of life in the Premier League, where guys are playing at like 100 miles an hour straight away. So I can understand why you can have some breakdowns, but I guess the big accusation is, does Pochettino take some accountability for why players keep breaking down under him? And as Poch says, listen, I don't know. You show me if my methods are too hard. He's barely even been able to train for that to be a reason for anything. So we just hope he comes back stronger. And to be honest with you, I kind of agree with Pochettino's sentiment, because here's my take on the injury matter. I feel like when there's frustration and there's no real outlet to release that frustration, with that main outlet being, answers. What is going on? Why do these injuries keep on happening with us? Poch is saying himself that this is the worst injury crisis that he's ever had to work with. 15 years of being a manager. What is the answers to what is going on? And I think sadly, there isn't just like one concrete answer that can explain everything away. I feel like it's a spectrum of difficulties that kind of accumulate and add up. I feel that's the complexity with our current situation. We can't forget that a lot of injuries that we've seen players sustain have come from contact injuries. I think the biggest one being Nkunku's injury with his knee in that Dortmund game. There's been so many examples looking at Cucurella with his ankle. You're looking at even Levi Cole, who's out now with a toe injury after he got that contact injury against Brentford. You're looking at guys who came back from international duty as well. Khan's out again with another contact injury. I feel like that's been the main context behind why we've suffered so many injuries. But there could be more layers. But listen, these are some of my ideas. I'm not going to act like I'm the be all and end all when it comes to understanding what's going on. I'm trying to see things from a more measured type of take, instead of fooling myself into thinking that, it's the medical team who are bad, it's Poch who's bad, it's this who's bad, we demand answers, blah blah blah. I just don't think it's that simple, to be honest with you. Is there like consequences that you face when you sign so many players under like 21? Their bodies are still developing, they're still growing. I guess maybe when they're not playing football over a sustained period of time, you're a lot more likely to suffer an injury and be affected, right? Outside of that too, we can't forget that some players had long-term issues. I think Reece James is another example. We knew that surgery was probably the best solution for him. It was kind of like put off until it was decided that was the best course of action. And of course, we've missed out on our captain for nearly the entirety of this season. That's got nothing to do with Pochettino. Poch has been quite patient in terms of giving players even more time to get back to playing on the pitch. Let's not forget those times when we were all desperately waiting for Nkunku to start playing. He was on the bench for how many games? Like, if he's on the bench, why are you not playing him? It's like you either do that and you get criticised, or you do the opposite and you still get criticised. I guess that's my issue with the situation right now. Because there is so much frustration, sometimes logic and understanding can go out the window. It's been very rare that players have sustained injuries from training ground incidences, but this tends to be like a normal injury that's sustained throughout every club in the Premier League. Now, in my opinion, and this is just my personal take about not only just seeing injuries with our club, but injuries in particular everywhere right now, especially like the rise of like ACL injury. I feel like the game demands too much running. Now, the stats are that players these days are doing double the sprints of players from like 15, 20 years ago. And I think I heard this stat during the World Cup in Qatar. Listen, the kilometers distances run aren't any different. And it's not like guys are doing like breaking new records of getting like 20 kilometers in a game and just unrealistic, distances run. Because there is so much dependency on running. And when you're running, it's start and stop. You have to be explosive. You're covering so many distances intervally over time. I just feel like it puts a strain on players' bodies. There's so much expectation for players to maintain just a high intensity level from the first minute to the last minute. And I feel like there can be consequences that come from that, especially with the younger type of player who needs a bit more experience understanding his body, knowing how to manage and condition himself. I'll give you an example of Malo Gusto saying that after his recent injury, he got some great advice from Thiago Silva, who's really looked to learn a lot from in terms of his diet and how he manages himself after games. And that's been a big difference maker so far in how fit and healthy he's feeling. But if you've got all these 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 20-year-olds without that experience mixed in between them, I can't have these unrealistic expectations on young players. But I feel like I probably should have done an entirely separate video discussing this matter. But I just feel like it's a bit too easy to just finger point one thing being the blame, when I think this is a complex issue right now. There's a spectrum of difficulties that's all combining and adding up, and I think this is what's created the season. But I hope that we get things better for next season. Right now, of course, new medical team guys are definitely coming in. But even with medical team doctors coming in, they're not going to fix things overnight. They're going to need more time to understand the players they're working with, their injury history, their health history, and then find the best possible ways to safeguard them in the future. So that's the press conference key points out the way. And now let's end things with my predicted lineup. And of course, it's a shame that we won't see Carnes. I was having some ideas of seeing Carnes and Palmer in the same team together against low blocks. I mean, that could be quite exciting. I feel for Carnes this season, man. I'm not expecting Enzo to start. Obviously, we have injuries we must account for. So this is the lineup I am going for. I feel like tomorrow, 4-2-3-1 at home. Let's use those offensive players. And my team is Jackson up front, Madueke on the right hand side, Mudryk on the left, Palmer as a 10, and Caicedo and Gallagher in the pivot. In defense, Cucurella, Badiashile, Disasi, Gusto, and Petrovic in goal. Now, I want to start from front to back. And up front, of course, Nico Jackson is our only striker at the moment, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for how much he's improved over this season. I mean, obviously, he's one yellow card away from another suspension, but he's not been booked in how many games. He's really managed his temperament even more. He's doing so much with the team in terms of pressing, setting up teammates, and now scoring goals. We've even seen this guy score with his head, so he deserves a lot of credit for his improvement. And it tells me that this is a guy that can continue to learn and improve over future seasons. Now, alongside him, I've gone for Madueke on the right. I think for the under-21s, I think the level's just too easy for him. But I think he's in a confident mood. And I feel like when you have players in that type of mood, right, utilize them, play them. And I feel like he deserves to play against Burnley. Hence why I've gone for Palmer in the middle. Because if Madueke was not in my team, Palmer would be on the right hand side. And listen, people will be like, but Nini, Palmer does his best stuff on the right. He's been very effective there. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking that this guy can't equally play as a 10 to a very high level. If he had the same amount of games at 10 compared to playing on the right hand side this season, I'm sure you see similar numbers statistically in terms of his productivity rate. But I think Palmer, of course, should be that link that can set up our fast-paced attack and also be that option for the midfield to pass to. And I think it's Burnley, so sometimes, listen, if you can use Gusto as a left back in certain games, you can use Cole Palmer in his best position as a 10. And for that reason, that's why Mudryk is on the left hand side. I feel like Mudryk at 10, he's had some nice flashy moments, but it's not enough for me. I think I need to see more consistency and threat in game. I feel like his long-term position is at left wing. So we can't fool ourselves into thinking that just because Mudryk is slightly performing better as a 10, that this will be his long-term position. He must show what he can do as a left winger, and I want to see him and Nico combine again together in games. For that reason, that's why Sterling's on the bench for me, but he'll come on as a sub. Obviously, with Enzo most likely not starting the game, it's definitely going to be Caicedo, Conor Gallagher. I think they speak for themselves. And in defense, Cucurella at left back, like our only left back right now. During the training session yesterday, I saw Badiashile was there, and I think him and Disasi will probably play together in defense. I think, again, Badia, another player that had an injury before the season started. You don't have pre-season to condition yourself. It's hard to get back to full speed of things, and he's been a bit rusty at times. And I'm actually going to boil down a lot of his mistakes this season to rust from being out for so long. So hopefully he can play the full 90 minutes, get ready, get his confidence up. And I want to see that former Monaco partnership showing what they can do tomorrow against Burnley, because we may have to turn towards these guys against Man United. So that's my back two. And obviously Malo Gusto at right back, one of the best fullbacks in the league, without a doubt. I mean, what he's doing at 20 years old, absolutely unreal. I'm glad that I got a photo taken with him yesterday. Very nice guy. Yeah, this guy is a whole right wing, and without his production rate down that side, God knows what we're doing this season. And obviously ended by Petrovic in goal. So my friends, that is my predicted lineup. They're my thoughts and opinions, and that is the preview out the way. So I hope you guys enjoy. Hit that like button. I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV. I'll catch you guys tomorrow on match day. Cool.